Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers who invited me. It attests their courage because I come from a very different field. Before I want to start my talk, I want to ask you a provocative question. I want to ask you how you in your life aspire, strive for, and attain quality. And not only quality in your work, but also quality in your relationships and quality with respect to your behavior to yourself. So, how do you strive and attain quality in your next project? In your relationships to friends, tonight, maybe a phone call. And in your behavior to yourself, maybe a little less alcohol tonight, going to bed early and getting up tomorrow morning with a run. So how do you do that? And you might have asked yourself this question and you might have found a ready answer, which is positive thinking. Wish it, will it, and then I do it. Now, our research in the past 25 years has found that such positive thinking about the future is good if you want to explore the various quality options in the future. And if you want to put yourself in a good mood. But when it comes to actually implementing your wishes and your ideas about quality, then such positive thinking is just not enough. Indeed, it can harm you. So, for example, the more positively people enrolled in a weight reduction program have been fantasizing and daydreaming about their success in the program, the less pounds they lost. 3 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later. University graduates, the more positively they fantasized about a quality job, the less job offers in their field did they get, the fewer dollars they earned 2 years later, and the fewer applications they send out. Or take students. The more positively they think about a quality exam, the less well they do. Or in the romantic relationship domain, the more positively they think about getting together with a person they are admiring, the less likely they got into an actual relationship. And in the health domain, the elderly, hip replacement surgery, the more positively they fantasized about a quick recovery, the less well could they move their joint. And the fewer steps could they walk, and the fewer general recovery options they had. So what is it then? Even in the mental health domain. So the more positively people had been thinking about a quality life, the more positive they felt at the moment, but the more depressed they got over time. Partly because they didn't try hard. So what is it with this positive thinking? Why is it that it actually hurts us? So we did a lot of experiments where we induced positive thinking versus negative thinking, questioning thinking, factual thinking, no thinking, depending on the study. And what we found is that people feel accomplished already in their mind. They already have it. So they relax. The energy goes down. And you can measure that by systolic blood pressure or by just asking people. So what is it then? Shall we just dismiss positive thinking and just say, okay, let's think negative? Well, we cannot do that. Why can we not do that? Because we found that these positive thinking, these positive wishes, these quality wishes, they come from our needs. They come from our states of decrement. So when you make people thirsty, they fantasize about getting to the water fountain. When you make people lack meaning, they fantasize and they daydream about a better, meaningful job. And if you make them lack relationships, they fantasize about their friends and their family. So we cannot take away these positive daydreams, the wishes about the future, because they give action the direction. But they sap the energy. So if they sap the energy, we need to give them energy. So how do we do that? By giving a healthy dose of reality in addition to the positive fantasy. Because then we understand that we need to have the energy to overcome the reality and actually go in the future. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what we call mental contrasting. And what the principle is, some mechanisms on how it translates into behavior change, some interventions, and then finally how we distribute it now to many people. What is the principle? Basically just what I said. You think about the future in positive terms, where you want to go, into quality. And then you complement these fantasies about the future with the obstacle of reality that stands in the way. So what is it in me that stands in the way? And that will make you understand that you need to hop over that you need to really take effort. And you will understand how to overcome that obstacle, which makes yourself just more clever in terms of overcoming it. And what is then also clear, whether you can overcome that obstacle. So, and if you can overcome it, then you fully commit. Then you're there. Then you go for it. But if the obstacle is formidable and you see this is not an option at the moment, it doesn't fit into your life, or it is just simply impossible, then you ready let go. You adjust your wish, you postpone it to a better point in time, or you let go. So what mental contrasting does, it helps you setting priorities for quality. And it helps you to clean up your life, because you go for this, what you really want, and you go for this, what you really can do, and you dismiss those things, which either, after all, don't prove so important, or are simply not feasible. So how does this look like? It's a simple tool, a mental tool you can apply. So you ask yourself, what is, at the moment, my most important wish? What do I really want? What is the quality I really want? So you might say, okay, I want to focus on quality. And then you ask yourself, what is the best future outcome you associate with fulfilling your wish? And you might say, then I would be really relieved. Then I would be satisfied with myself. And you imagine that, because that anchors you in the future. Then you know where to go. But then you turn, instead of just positively thinking, and you ask yourself, what is the critical obstacle in me that I don't go that way? So you might say, I'm just worried that I'm not good enough. And then you imagine that worry. It might sting in your stomach a little bit, but you imagine it. So we showed that people really set preferences and they achieve their wishes when they do this little mental exercise. But how does this work? So we did a lot of experiments, and we found that there are 3 principles which happen after mental contrasting. Regarding cognition, what happens is that if you mental contrast a feasible wish, that then the future and the obstacle are closely connected. And the obstacle is connected to the behavior to overcome obstacle. And that all happens outside of your awareness. And you recognize the obstacles. So the party on Sunday night is not a fun party anymore. It is now the obstacle to doing a quality report on Tuesday. So the idea really is that this conscious mental exercise of mental contrasting triggers non-conscious processes that then are responsible for behavior, and that's what we find. And it also gives you energy, so that's the motivation part. So you get the energy to overcome, and you can measure to overcome the obstacle, and you can measure that again by systolic blood pressure or by self-report. And it equips you for setbacks. So if you get criticism, You get all the information out of the criticism. You process that, put it in your plans in order to overcome the obstacle. And you don't take it personally, so you're not offended. So all this is happening outside of people's awareness, and it predicts and is responsible then for the behavior change. Now, you might say, okay, let's see whether people do that anyway, then we don't have a need for intervention. So we did a lot of studies where we measured whether people spontaneously do this little mental exercise. Only 10%, 15%, 20%, depending on the study. So most of us don't do it. Most of us actually fantasize about the future, how wonderful it will be when the quality is there. But nobody really acts on it. So does this actually predict quality if we spontaneously fantasize? We did a little study with dance sport athletes. So these dance sport athletes, you can separate them in experts and in non-experts. And we just looked at, do the experts more spontaneously do this little exercise? And on the left side, you have the non-experts. Almost nobody is on the blue bar. The blue bar is mental contrasting. But the experts, they do it a little more, but still they don't do it so much. And if you look at those who do mental contrasting, they do better on the next competition. So meaning there is a need to intervene. So then we did intervention studies, a whole array of intervention studies. And one just looked at simple time management, selecting the quality projects from those who are less important. So we gave mental contrasting as a little exercise to middle managers. And these middle managers then were asked 2 weeks later how they fared in their daily life, as opposed to those who got just a positive thinking exercise. And you see, they did manage their time better. So they said, I managed my time, I easily decided, and that's important, I completed some projects. But at the same time, I also let go from others. So, setting priority, decision-making for the quality. We reasoned if you do mental contrasting, or if you give mental contrasting to people, then there should be better in cooperation, because they are more clever. They are more clever in finding win-win situations. Situations where both partners, negotiation partners, actually have an advantage. So we borrowed a paradigm from the behavioral economics. And in this paradigm, you have two people, and they play with each other, selling a car versus buying a car. And you get in this little play, you get the more points if you find win-win situations, integrative kind of solutions to the car buying and car selling. So we had pairs instructed in mental contrasting, others in just positive fantasizing, and others in just looking at the obstacles, and a fourth group didn't get any strategy. And what you find here is that those who had been doing this little exercise, that they found more integrated solutions, more win-win solutions, again, the blue bar. And the interesting thing is, on the right side, you find that they're more cooperative. So they're more fair to each other. They have about the same amount of points within the pairs. And still, they did better than the other pairs. So more integration, more win-win when you do the little exercise. So this is just a summary. We showed intervention results for cigarette reduction, coping with stress, in the interpersonal relationships, problem solving, and social responsibility, taking on social responsibility, help seeking, help giving, and then in the professional domain, engaging in vocational training, studying abroad, being more creative, and doing better in math. Now, what happens if the obstacles are really sticky? So if the obstacles are such strong emotions, strong impulses, what can you do then? Can we just complement the mental contrasting exercise with another exercise which strengthens the link between the obstacle and the behavior to overcome obstacle? So we employed implementation intentions. Implementation intentions are simple if-then plans discovered by Peter Goldwitzer. So if situation X occurs, then I will perform the goal-directed behavior Y. So in the context of mental contrasting, there would be, remember, if I worry not being good enough, or the example beforehand, so I tell myself, if I worry not being good enough, then I will just concentrate on the quality. And that gives this complex word of mental contrasting with implementation intentions. So in the scientific literature, you find it under MCII. But what it really is much simpler. You formulate a wish, something that you really want, some quality project you really invested in. So she wants to write a quality paper. Then you ask yourself, what would be the best thing, the best outcome, if I achieved that wish? So she might think, then I would feel really understood and connected to my community. And then she imagines it, and this imagery is important. And then she asks herself, what is it in me that stands in the way? What is my inner obstacle? I cannot say no. So when people come, I just can't say no. And then she imagines this, I cannot say no. And then the plan. If I feel I cannot say no, then I will decline and explain that I need to work on my paper. So, and that's WHOOP. Wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. So this little WHOOP exercise, we tested in a lot of interventions. Now I want to talk briefly about a series of interventions which pertain to quality work in the next generations. And these are students. So if we introduce these mental exercises in students, then we would get a better culture for the future. So how would that look like for the students? Simple exercise. My study wish, the best outcome, imagine, the obstacle, imagine, and then if obstacle, then I will action plan. So these are 3 studies. One of the studies pertained to 5th grade students in the States. So these are 11th graders sort of having an exam in the fall, and we tested how much practice questions they actually solved in the summer. So 60% more practice questions in the summer for those who got the mental exercise of WHOOP as compared to a standard learning control group. These are homework, quality of homework as judged by the parents. And you have a group of children who are vulnerable for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and a group which is not vulnerable. And what you see there, that the difference for those who are at risk for ADHD is even bigger. So when the challenge is strong, WHOOP is stronger too. And this is a study where we increased with WHOOP the GPA, meaning the course grades in the United States in a group of disadvantaged students, and also school attendance. More effort in producing quality schoolwork. So again, we did it with respect to exercise, pain management, insomnia, perspective taking, sustainable consumption, time management, work engagement, and negotiation. So it works, but why is it different? How is it different from traditional behavior change strategies? Now, traditional behavior change strategies would focus on increasing the attitudes towards quality or the confidence that people actually can produce quality. This is great. It's just very, very difficult because attitudes and beliefs are based on past performance. So WHOOP would go directly to performance without having to change the attitudes because these attitudes and the confidence is so sticky. And then you could also say there are strategies around that change the content of goals, for example. Learning goals work a little better than performance goals. Or the framing, approach goals versus avoidance goals. WOOP doesn't do that. It can go for any kind of wish. It's independent. But what WOOP does, it's a skill. You can learn it like a bicycle. It has these 4 steps. And you can learn it in order to use that tool to improve quality. It automates quality behavior. So it's conscious, but it has these non-conscious consequences. And with these non-conscious consequences, you can change your behavior. It builds good and it breaks bad habits. And you can use it for any kind of wish across age and across life domain. So what did I do? I talked about the principle of mental contrasting. I talked about the mechanisms and some interventions. And now I want to talk about dissemination. And that's basically one slide. So it's a website we devised in the past 5 years because we felt this is a principle we discovered in research, that we know the mechanisms. We know it works in the field, and now we can give it out. And on this website, you find the science, you find instructions in terms of writing and videos, you find an app, how to get the basic instructions, and you can also have access. If you have a lot of time and a big attention span, you can use the book. But if not, go to the website. It's all free. Everyone can access it. And you can take it as a friend in your pocket, and you can run with it basically for your life. It's a friend for life. So thanks for to the participants of all these many experiments, to the researchers who helped doing that, and to the funding agency, and thanks to you for listening.